I was thinking on the way that this must be an important talk because normally I don't run into so many just weird things. Like you guys got the snowstorm, then the snowstorm was coming to us, and we didn't know if it was going to snow or rain. It rained, but it snowed just north of Milwaukee. I had to go through Minneapolis where it snowed a huge amount, but luckily they're good at clearing things. Then the airplane had a mechanical problem, and I'm really thinking about, am I really going to get here or not, or should I just turn around and go home? But it all got squared away, and here I am. I want to thank all of you for coming. I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to promise you that you're going to hear something tonight you didn't know, all right? If you don't, then you can see Leanne for a refund, okay? So I just want to make that clear to you, all right? This information is really based on things that we as human beings need to know and understand about ourselves. And this talk came to be in the following fashion. I'm the mother of 6. She didn't mention that. Grandmother of 7, number 8 is on the way. We're a little girl heavy. We got 6 girls, 1 boy. We don't know what this new one is yet, but that's all part of it. My husband and I have been married a long time. And 45 years this year, people. And we will have a party. We had one for 40, and one of my sister-in-laws was like crazed. She wasn't paying for it. I don't know what her problem was. No, you can't celebrate 40. You have to celebrate 50. I said, I'll do 40. I'll do 45. I'll do 50. Please, Jesus, we're still here at 50. But I know a lot of people who don't make it that far, okay? Why not celebrate family and love, okay? Anyway, this came to be in the following manner. When I was expecting our 4th child, I met a woman who lived like down the block. We were introduced by a friend of ours, and she lived really close to me, but we'd never met. And our kids were kind of the same age. They went to the same school. We went to the same parish. And we got to be good friends. And then we had our 5th kids, and they were born about 3-4 months apart. And then we were expecting our 6th kids, and they were due the same day. And I did not ever in my life anticipate that this would happen. I just thought it was one of those weird circumstances. Well, I went to the hospital at midnight on March 23rd, and our daughter was born on March 24th at 7 a.m. But before she was born, my friend Joan's in the next room. And John was born on the 25th, but he was born within 24 hours. Okay, mental note, weird. All right, tuck it away. I belong to a group called the Association of Prenatal and Perinatal Psychology and Health. One of the most fascinating groups I belong to in terms of people who really understand that what happens in utero is crucial to who we become, all right, how we're born those first 3 years of life. And it's a real eclectic group of counselors and researchers and, you know, not too many doctors, a few doctors, midwives, doulas, the whole 9 yards. I'm on the way home and I'm reading a book called The Anthropology of Mothering, written by a woman by the name of Sarah Hrdy, H-R-D-Y. And she explained what happened with me and Joan. In the very old days, anthropologically speaking, we women lived in a community together, and you guys were out hunting and fishing. I'll tell you more about that later. And if I would die and I had a baby, there was no way to feed my baby because we didn't have anything in terms of formula bottles, all right? There had to be a woman in the community who was invested enough to feed my baby. Now, in these communities, we were not all blood relatives. We were kin. Kin are relatives by intention, all right? But we women set off each other's cycles. We will cycle together if we're together in about 3 months. And the purpose of this was when we had babies, if one of us died, there was somebody who had a baby the same age as ours who could nurse our baby and allow it to survive. And I realized that's what had happened with Joan and myself, all right? We'd become kin. And I was so taken with that and with how we communicate this stuff that I started reading more and more. And the more I read, the more annoyed I got, because nobody ever told us any of this stuff, all right? I'm like, I'm an adult. Why don't I know some of this stuff? This is really interesting. And so I do ministry with women who've had abortions, and women would call and talk about how they got pregnant the first time they had sex, and I explained to them why that was quite likely that that would happen, and talked to them, and they said, why don't we know this stuff? My life might have been different if I'd known this. Promise me you'll tell other people. And so it is out of my promise to those women who asked me to tell you that I'm telling you this tonight, all right? This is just material that we need to know in terms of our own lives, in terms of making good choices, all right? But I want to start by talking about how interconnected we are. Because we live in a society that would have us believe that we're all tough, rugged individuals. Family doesn't mean a whole lot, you know, how that plays out. But I want to say to you first that the Chinese say we're more likely to get the diseases of our grandmother than the diseases of our mother. Say what? Grandma, mom, you. All right? Why? Because when grandma was pregnant with your mother, all the ovum that your mother was ever going to have were already present at 20 weeks in utero. So women, we have, long before we were born, had all the ovum we'll ever have in our life. All right? If grandma was sick, if grandma was stressed, those stress hormones went to your mom. Your ovum were in there, and you got impacted by that. All right? Fascinating stuff. This is really an unfolding field of what's called epigenetics. All right? And what we've discovered is that these kinds of stress events, some illnesses, are intergenerational, that the footprints are laid down in our children and in our children's children. And some of the research that was done on this, the early research was done following the famine in the Netherlands after World War II. And they discovered that the sons of the men there had certain health issues. And they discovered also that the women did too. All right? What does that mean? It means that what's happening in a mother's body during a pregnancy is very significant. All right? There's much passing back and forth. All right? Now, when we start, there are probably about 6 million ovum in there. By the time we're born, they're down to about 2 million. And when we get our period as women, we have 400 to 450,000. And in the course of a normal lifespan, we have about 400 to 450 periods. Okay? Just some numbers to ponder. All right? Now, we need to know that there are other things here that are interrelated familially. All right? And the first one I want to talk about is the fact that everybody in the world, got that? There are very few times you can say that and be accurate. I'm accurate. Carry in their body the mitochondria of their mothers, male and female. The mitochondria are the energy bodies in the cell, and everybody carries their cells of their mothers back to 7 lines of women, with the implication that there's probably an Eve figure. All right? You can test which of the 7 lines of women you came from. National Geographic, Ancestry.com, a couple of others would be happy to take your money. It's about $100. And they'll send you a little swab, and you swab the inside of your cheek. You send it to them, and they'll tell you which of the 7 lines of women you came from, but also what their migratory pattern through history was. It's fascinating, all right? Who would have thought, okay? Guy who first wrote about this, a man by the name of Brian Sykes. It's a book called The 7 Daughters of Eve. But he also did another book because somebody said to him, is there anything else that has this kind of longevity? He got to thinking about it, and he was at a conference, and there was another guy named Sykes, and somebody said, hey, are you two related? And he said, well, I don't think so. But then he got to wondering, and what he concluded and discovered, I mean, this is research, is that you men not only have the mitochondria of your mother, but you have your father's Y. But it's the same kind of longevity. Eons, your father's Y. Y, okay? And what's interesting is that on the Y, there are some markers. So, for instance, in the Jewish community with the tradition of the priestly caste, the men who are members of the priestly caste have a marker there, all right? And it was interesting. One of the first articles I read on the Y had to do, it was U.S. News and World Report, and they tested a bunch of guys, and they found that this Catholic priest who was Hispanic down in New Mexico had the marker of the priestly caste of the Jewish community. But now remember, in Spain, long ago, there was a large Jewish community, and there may well have been intermarriage, all right? But this connection across generations is something for us to keep in mind, okay? Now, there's another thing that I'll talk about in a minute, but I want to say a little bit about men and women, okay? We women are XX. You guys are XY, all right? We women have 3,500 to 6,000 genes here, and we have 2 of them. And the big news is, gentlemen, you're the weaker of the two sexes. All right? Why? Because you've only got one X. And I'll explain that to you in a minute. We women, these two X's match. All right? If I have a predisposition, say I'm carrying the color blindness gene, I probably won't show it unless this other X has it. I will carry it. These two randomly assort in your body. And one of the things that's interesting is that identical twin girls do not have identical bodies because those two X's randomly assort themselves. Identical twin boys have identical bodies, okay? Now, you gentlemen have 3,500 to 6,000 genes here. You got those from your mom. You got about 72 here, all right? They do different things. They don't match up exactly, so you don't get this protection here, all right? More boys are conceived than girls by quite a few. It's about 130 boys to 100 girls. But what happens is baby boys in utero, at birth, early years of life, through adolescence are more likely to die. Health issues, other things. There are more miscarriages, that sort of thing. And so it's this because there isn't that balance here in terms of the ability to block something. So if you got your mom's colorblind gene, guess who's colorblind? Yep, I got a son who is. So one of those pieces. But this awareness that women and men are different. And we need to be conscious of that because we live in this society that's big on gender neutrality, all right? If only I gave my girls trucks to play with and my boys dolls, they would be nice gender neutral people. Well, let me tell you how that experiment went, all right? We got 4 daughters, 2 sons. We gave our dolls trucks. They wrapped them in blankets. They gave them names. They had parties. Nobody ever took a truck apart, though we suspicion that one of them might have tried because she can fix her brakes, okay? The other 3 are clueless. There ain't no way. Okay? Sons got dolls. They're 8 years apart. Son number 1 got a doll. He discovered that the doll made a great football. And he and the kid down the block in 2 weeks wore out the doll. It never had a name, a party, a blanket, nothing. No naps, nothing. Second kid got his doll. And there were buddy dolls out there at this point. And these were boy dolls that had tools. And our son really liked his buddy doll. And it was only a couple of years ago, he's an adult now, where a truth unfolded. And the truth was that one Saturday when we went to the grocery store, son number 1 decided they should play a game. It was called Sacrifice the Buddy Doll. Yeah, that's not a girl game. And I said to my son, I'm really sorry. I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I can say to you is that in midlife, when you're expected to go to therapy, because everybody has to go, right? You got something to talk about. And he said, yes, I do. So we think there was more than just the buddy doll. All right? Now, I want to say to you that men and women's brains are different, okay? And we have to recognize that there are unique gifts to both of them, all right? And to appreciate them, because we don't always do that. You know, we women can't figure out why our husbands don't think like we do. I'm going to explain it to you, all right? But this awareness that these are complementary pieces. As men and women, we are complementary. We have different gifts, all right? So some years ago, there was a conference, and there was a Catholic sister and a psychiatrist from Canada. This is before the gender neutrality thing got to be a real hot topic. And they were having a discussion about men's and women's brains. And so the diagram I'm going to share with you came from those two people, all right? A male brain, all right, is a series of boxes, all right? Men are linear thinkers. Your life depended on being a linear thinker, gentlemen, because you were out hunting and seafaring. You could not afford to be distracted if you were hunting because you might not bring lunch home. You might become lunch for something, all right? The awareness of the ability to be absolutely single-focused, all right? You men also have a gift in that if I took you outside and said, find north, most of you can do this in the dark. In the day, we women are like, north. I've heard of it. Yeah, I wonder where it is. Yeah. You guys have a little thing in your brain, a little part that's very similar to what is in the brains of butterflies and birds that migrate thousands of miles and always return to the same place. Think about this. In the old days, if you were out in an ocean, you were on the ocean, there wasn't GPS. There wasn't any of that. You had to know how to get home, all right? There weren't signs that said, you know, Fort Collins that way out in the forest. You had to know how to get home. It's a gift that God gave you in terms of being able to find location, all right? Now, you men think in the following fashion. You usually need to go through all the boxes, okay? You have the ability to be absolutely single-focused. Women, pay attention. If he's reading, he's deaf. Seriously. You cannot hold him responsible for what you tell him when he's reading, and then you say, "Did you hear me?" And he goes, "Huh?" All right, just so you know that, all right? This ability to be single-focused is gift, all right? We women, oh, let me back up 1 minute. I was giving a talk out in California, and there was a guy there who ran a school. And the school from kindergarten to grade 12 has girl classrooms and boy classrooms because boys learn different than girls. And the classrooms that most of our kids are in are female classrooms, all right? Sit still, put your name, you know, we say, the teacher says, you know, take out your pencil, take out your paper, put your name at the top of the page. We girls are all over that. You boys don't get any farther than paper because you're single-focused, all right? Color, spitballs, airplanes. And what does the teacher say? You don't pay attention. No, he's paying absolute attention. That's the problem, okay? Single focus, all right? So this guy told me something, and it's one of these. He said that there's a box here, and it's an empty box. And when we say to the men in our life, "What are you thinking about?" and you gentlemen reply, "Nothing," it's true. They can think about nothing. That's how they used to regroup when they were hunting or fishing. They would fire gaze. They would build a big fire at night, and they would sit side by side companionably and basically not say much. Same thing happens in bars today. All right? Just so you know, some things haven't changed. All right? Okay. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say when I was sitting at the bar we're fire gazing, but just you can keep that to yourself. All right. See, and we women have what I call as a triage brain. We lived in the community with the children. We had to keep track of, we were gatherers, those were hunters, all right? We had to keep track of where the food was, where the danger was, you know, where the kids are, all that sort of thing. And so we can attend to many things at one time, but it's almost impossible for us to have this kind of focus. Our life depended on being able to keep track of many things. So for instance, you know, we can observe that the cat's thrown up, the toddler's gone outside, supper's burning, and I have to go to the bathroom. And usually we don't have any losses in that, okay? We can manage that. Guys talk about how that would be really hard to do, okay? You know, I have a friend who heard me give this talk, and she said, "Yeah, you know, I was gone, and he was home with the kids, and he was going to make supper. And I got home, and I said, 'Where are the kids?' And he said, 'Kids.' Next door? Look, we're having barbecue. Look at the beef. Look at the, okay, all right? You know, and the reverse happened another time. She left him at home. She came home, and she goes, 'How's supper?' Because he was supposed to be minding it. Supper. I bet that's what I smell, huh? Well, kids, they're right here. Look, we were all playing ball, and we were doing all these things, okay? But the awareness of difference, okay? We need to appreciate that, all right? Now, just some other things we see differently. Men are much better at long distance vision. We have better peripheral vision, okay? If I gave boys stuff to color, they basically use about 5 or 6 colors. And it's kind of blue, gray, black. Boys tend to draw verbs, exploding things, driving things that move. Girls, we draw nouns, love, butterflies, colors, many colors, okay? Difference in how we view the world, all right? You know, males like things that taste sweeter. They have a higher tolerance for real sweet tastes. We don't like things that sweet, okay? Toys, you know, boys fairly young figure out boy toys, all right? We girls, we might play with boy toys for a while, and then we choose girl toys. But it's interesting to see the difference, all right? And again, it's not better or worse. It's just that it's different, all right? We women would hear a baby crying, you know, just sort of even beginning to cry. You men would not hear that. But if there was a stick that snapped somewhere, you would be on full alert. Because part of us is still from this old time. in terms of who we are and what we bring to it, okay? We need to know that baby girls who are less than 24 hours old will respond to the cries of another baby, okay? We read faces better, okay? There's just a difference in terms of things that we attend to and that we are able to bring those gifts, you know, into the world around us, okay? So again, it's about complementarity. And when we try to do away with that, we really weaken society in many respects because we aren't celebrating our gifts. What are the gifts that I have as a woman? What are the gifts that you have as a man? And we need those for a society to work, okay? Now, we need to talk, obviously, about male and female biology, all right? And we're gonna talk about some of this. Now, one of the things I want to start by saying to you is that we've been given a lot of different gifts. We live in this society that leads us to believe that we are disembodied, that whatever is going on in my brain is what's really happening in terms of relationships and other things, and our bodies are kind of a bother sometimes. The reality is we are embodied people. We are body, mind, and spirit, and all of this is working, and you cannot turn it off, okay? We live in a society where social media has led us to really believe that sex can be a recreational activity. I mean, if you want to be faithful to somebody, that's okay, but it's not necessary. And I'm going to talk about some of the science here so that you have a good sense of what this really, really means, all right? There are some scent cues that we have, okay? They're called pheromones, P-H-E-R-E-O-M-O-N-E-S, pheromones. They're scent molecules of affiliation. Most of us perceive them. They are perceived by two pits in the septum of your nose, and they communicate with a very small, fine nerve in front of your olfactory nerve. It's right here in the front part of your brain. And it's all about relationships. That's what these are about, all right? Now, I want to say to you, if I gave you T-shirts, and one pile is yours, and one pile is generic male, generic female, 8 out of 10 of you will automatically identify your T-shirt. You know the scent of you, all right? 7 out of 10 of you would discern male from female, all right? Women tend to smell sweet. Men tend to smell like musk. That's why it is in the aftershave. It's a distinctly male scent. But that's just the broad piece. We would recognize family that we've never met. You know, a half-sibling, you'd know them by scent. And there was a case in England of a couple that met, fell in love, and right before they got married, the parents told both of them that they had been adopted. They did not know that. After they were married, they continued the search and discovered that they were fraternal twins. It's annulment time, all right? Another case in South Africa, a couple met in a big city, went back to the village. They came from the same rural area. And when they got there, they discovered that his father had had an indiscretion with her mother. And they were siblings, all right? So this question of things we're equipped to know, all right? Watch when people hold newborn babies. We hold them here and we smell the top of their head. People do it automatically, okay? Why? Because we're checking to see if we know who they are, all right? If a mom is with her baby after birth and then they separate mom and baby, they blindfold mom and they bring in a bunch of babies, she knows the scent of her baby. She'll pick out her baby immediately. It takes fathers a little longer. Fathers would need about 6 or 7 hours to be able to do that discrimination. But men discriminate something else quicker, and that's touch. The father would know the feel of the back of his baby's hand compared to others. The mother couldn't do that. It's a different discrimination, all right? Think about that. That's an amazing, amazing gift, all right? And pheromones do something else. We women, when we're attracted to a male, by scent, that's our first attraction. Did you know that? Whether he smells nice or not. It's not just aftershave, but guess what? When you buy perfume and you buy aftershave, you match it to your scent. That's why when you're in the perfume store, you go, yeah, not in a million years. You know what you smell like, and when you buy again, aftershave or perfume, you enhance your own personal scent with that, right? So I meet a guy, and I'm attracted to him. Now, just because he smells nice does not mean you're going to marry him. You gotta see if he's worth it or not, all right? But what this first discrimination is he a good biological mate? And we are attracted to a male whose immune system, this is high-tech science, What you're perceiving here is something called the MHC complex, major histocompatibility complex. There's a little overlap right here. That has to do with your father's immune system. But you see the difference here? This is the possibility of fertility, all right? If we are contracepting, we need to know that that messes with our ability. Nobody tells us this. This is high-tech science, all right? I am attracted to a male if I'm on contraceptives. It could be for health reasons. It doesn't make any difference what the purpose is. I'm attracted to a male whose immune system is very much like my own. My father's, my brother's. This is a fertility challenge. And if I go off the contraceptive, I'm not going to find him sexually attractive anymore. It's women who choose divorces in these cases. Usually there's no spark, all right? He's a nice man. When I am on the pill, my body thinks it's pregnant, and I am looking for a protector. I'm looking for someone like my family. When I am not on the pill, I am looking for a potential mate, and that's the difference, okay? Again, high-tech science, research done in several countries, very interesting stuff, all right? Now, let's talk a little bit about biology. We as women have 2 ovaries, okay? Now, they're about the size of an almond in your body, all right? You have 2 fallopian tubes, okay? And interestingly, they don't touch your ovary, all right? And you have your uterus, you have your cervix, all right? Now, our body works in this fashion that every other month, 1 ovary will produce ovum, all right? 3 months before your current cycle, it was already determined biologically which ovum would begin to develop. There's about 10 that develop, all right? Something determines how many are released, and rarely is it more than 2. The octomom, that would never happen in nature, all right? We tend to give birth to the number of children, max, that we have nipples for, all right? 2, all right? Triplets, naturally occurring triplets, are not very common, all right? But I also want to say to you that twinning is far more common than we think. 1 in 8 of us was actually conceived as a twin in utero. But many of us had what's called the vanishing twin syndrome, and so we lost our twin, a little miscarriage, whatever. We might have absorbed that child. But this is an awareness of the knowledge that this other person was in utero with us, all right? So 2 of these ovum are set loose. There are cilia, little hair-like things here that create a suction and draw the ovum down into the fallopian tube. Now, are you gentlemen aware of this? Do you know that your sperm is incapable of fertilizing an ovum on its own unless it's changed in the body of your partner? Did you know that? I find this just so fascinating. I've never heard it talked about. It's called capacitation, all right? And they sit here for a few hours, and they are changed. So now the head of the sperm is capable of entering the ovum, and it swims differently now, all right? But we need to know, and this is a little side piece here, that there are 3 kinds of sperm. You'll like these. These are highly technical terms. There's egg getters, killers, and blockers. And the guy who wrote about it is British, and I guess he plays rugby. But that's just my guess. All right. Egg getters are these guys. We know them. Blockers are irregularly shaped, and they used to say, well, they're just irregularly shaped. There's something wrong with them. But they have a job. And their job is to fill in the crypts in the cervix here so that the egg getters can get through. All right? Then, killers are for the most part benign, unless we women have had multiple partners in a short period of time, in which case the killers are triggered, they're highly poisonous, and their intent is to kill off the egg getters of the other guy. There are sports analogies here on many levels if you think about this, right? Okay? But the problem with this is if the killers are activated in my body, it changes the chemistry of my body. Our women bodies are basically acidic. It protects us from bacteria and other things. You guys are alkaline, all right? Now my body becomes alkaline, and I am highly susceptible to infections, including one called bacterial vaginosis, which is very serious and needs treatment like right now, all right? Now, a footnote for you guys, the last thing that goes on your sperm before it leaves the body is a coating of vitamin C. If it didn't do that, it would be immediately neutralized in my body. All right? My acidic body would kill off the alkaline. But because there is this coating on it, it survives. All right? We have to know that in our society, male fertility has dropped very significantly since the advent of the pill in 1960. Why is that? Because the estrogen in the pill, the chemistry, the hormones, go directly into the water system. We do not know how to get it out, and we see this in terms of male fertility. Male fertility is about half of what it used to be, okay? We women also are getting more estrogen. I mean, there's much here we don't know in terms of our own health and well-being, all right? So, back here, we have an ovum that's moving, all right? We have a capacitated sperm. Did you know that it's the ovum that picks the sperm out of the millions of sperm that get there? The ovum picks it, and there's this sort of attraction. And then there's this chemistry that happens here. And the sperm enters, and this becomes the midline of your body, and the ovum seals itself off so no other sperm can come in. If something goes wrong and other sperm come in, this will die, all right? Now, this little person is already communicating with the mother. It's the chemistry of the baby that's telling us we're pregnant. And it starts to form a place in our body where the placenta will be implanted, all right? Chemistry is moving. Now, gentlemen, you need to know there's a couple things that can mess with your sperm here. First is do not wear your cell phones in your pants pockets. All right? Dead serious. This is very serious. Find one of those cases that has the radiation protection because we know it damages sperm. Do not work with your laptop directly on your lap for the same reason. Women, we don't know for sure, but there's some research. What happens, because we carry our cell phones here oftentimes, don't we, in kind of midpoint. Well, that's where your ovaries are, all right? We know that there are incidents. There's a book called Electronic Spring, which is fascinating but scary, that, you know, we know that there's brain cancer that comes from using cell phones all the time, all right? We also need to know, and as a college population, that pot is not benign. We're told it is. But we need to know that THC has problems related to our reproductive system, all right? For one thing, THC, one, we know it damages sperm, flat out. Again, the research is there. You can go online and you can find this. But the chemistry that's communicating here is related to the chemistry of THC, and this can block this from happening, all right? And when the baby is coming down to build a placenta, it's the same chemistry, and THC may block the receptor sites. As women and men, we need to know this because THC stays in your body for a while, all right? Again, it's not benign. This is very serious stuff that we need to be very conscious of, okay? So this awareness that the baby is in charge, all right? And there's a lovely little piece of there's an article. I want to hold it up for you because you have to see it in order to believe it. Because if I tell you, you will not believe me. A 10-second kiss is long enough to transfer 80 million bacteria. Think about it. All right? Changes the chemistry of our mouth, all right, in all seriousness. But what's interesting is if we only have one partner, that bacteria, when I'm pregnant, passes to my baby, my bacteria and his bacteria, and set up the biome, the gut bacteria of this baby. Chemistry from both parents. How interesting is that? It's fascinating. We used to say the placenta was a barrier. The placenta is not a barrier. The placenta is a superhighway. And whatever's going on in the mom is going to the baby, like right now, all right? Now, there's something else that's very interesting here, and I'm going to come back to you guys in just a minute, but it's this. Are you aware of the fact that women carry cells of every child they ever conceived the rest of their lives? Think about that. The phenomena is called microchimerism or chimerism, okay? Chimerism. There's a lot of research going on in this. Mothers carry the cells. Where are they in your body? Everywhere. You have brain cells that belong to your sons. I mean, they're yours, but they've got your son's DNA in there. They are everywhere in your body. We pass our cells to our children. You all carry your mother's cells and possibly your grandmother's cells now, all right? But there's more. When I'm pregnant with another child, I passed the cells of all the previous children to that child. How many of you have older siblings? Yeah, think about it. My youngest daughter said that she concluded she had gotten the best cells of her older siblings because she was by far my exceptional child. And you're free to use that if it makes you feel better. All right? Now, what's interesting is this. In my mother's body, they're there by 4 weeks. All right? Those pheromones, men perceive them by 4 weeks into the pregnancy before we even know we're pregnant. And men are being changed by this pregnancy, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right? In our mother's bodies, if there's a disease, the cells of our children gather like it's trying to fix it. In the bodies of our children, they're born with a disability. My mother's cells cluster there like they're trying to fix it. There's still a lot we don't know. There's ongoing research here. But this question is a fascinating one. What happens in our society where we have children who are born to surrogate mothers, who've had their own children, other people's children, all in utero? Those cells are now all carried by those offspring children. We don't know what this means in terms of things, for instance, like autoimmune diseases, all right? That question that I raised here about this partner versus this partner. One of the things that can go on here is that if I do get pregnant, I might develop autoimmune diseases because my body can't really discriminate that the cells of my children aren't me. They're very close. With this partner, my body knows that they're children, they're offspring from that man who was my mate. That's an important thing for us to be conscious of, all right? This question, it takes 6 months of exposure to the sperm of our partner for our body to say that's my partner as women. Now, you can get pregnant the very first time you have sex. Why? Because when we ovulate, we women are different. We smell different. The men around us know we're ovulating. They have increased sexual interest, higher testosterone. They're more aggressive. We women, we dress to impress. Hair's better, makeup's better, little décolletage. We're more interested in sex, okay? In our family, the youngest daughter, who I just told you about, came down one day, and I had been talking to her older sister and her about this stuff. I just found it. I was really interested in it. And said daughter, who is usually a pretty conservative dresser, had a little décolletage, little makeup. Her older sister said, "What are you ovulating? Go put your clothes on." Little information can be a dangerous thing. Yes, indeed. All right. Now, we mothers have the cells of our children there at 4 weeks. The baby has our cells, we know for sure, by 13 weeks. It could be sooner, but we know for sure by 13 weeks, okay? There is a huge number of baby cells in our bodies and our cells in our baby bodies. Fascinating. What is all that about? Now, I'm of the opinion, and this is just my own lived experience, that in part might be about mother's intuition, which we sort of blow off as being, it's kind of hokey. Well, my own lived experience is this. One of my daughters was born with an invisible anomaly. I'd already had 2 kids, and I knew there was something wrong with this baby. And the doctor goes, there, dear, you're a new mother. Yeah, but I'm not a first-time mother. And he wouldn't give me any credence. And we went up to Minnesota for the summer, and our daughter stopped eating. She started screaming. I took her to the doctor. She had a serious kidney infection, and her electrolytes were just totally screwed up. And they told me she'd be profoundly retarded. So we went back to Milwaukee, and they told us to find a kidney surgeon, and we were blessed in that we found one of the guys who was like a world expert in baby kidneys. Did surgery, discovered that there was a blockage in the urethra, and that kidney only had 5% function. Now, I will tell you there's also a miracle, because 1 year later, that kidney was 100% normal, and kidneys do not regenerate. This doctor could not explain it. I could explain it, but he couldn't explain it. All right? But that awareness, I knew, okay? I knew there was something wrong with this baby. Had an experience with one of our sons. He lived abroad. He was in Asia for a few years, and we talked to him every week, and he's a communicator by job, but not necessarily so hot and personal, all right? So you talk to him, how's Thailand? Fine. How's your job? Fine. How's the food? Fine. Everything's good? Yeah. Okay, talk to you next week. All right. At one point, I wake up and I have jaw pain, and I can hardly open my mouth. I've never had jaw pain in my life. And I get up and I take some aspirin, and the next day it's a little better. Third day it's gone. One of those strange things, you know. So about 3 months later, he calls home, and he starts the conversation by saying, Mom, did I tell you I went to the hospital? No, I remember that, yeah. Yeah, pretty sure you didn't mention it. When? About 3 months ago. Really? What was wrong with you? I couldn't open my mouth. I had such jaw pain. I went to the hospital. They gave me medicine, and on the third day, it was gone. I'm willing to bet that that's what was going on. You go, how could that be? I'll tell you who knows. Quantum physicists. When I have quantum physicists and something like this, they'll go, I can explain that. Well, I wouldn't understand it. So if you want to know, find a quantum physicist. He can explain it to you. All right? But this question, think about, again, long ago, far away. Would it not make sense that it would be for the survivability of my children that I would know who was weaker and who was healthier? You know, no doctors, no whatever. If that kid's sick, I have to pay extra attention. It's not that I'm not going to take care of the other child, but there's this intuitive knowledge that that one needs extra TLC if there's an illness or something. Makes a whole lot of sense when you think about it, okay? So this awareness here of the interplay and what do those cells have to do, okay? Now, I started to talk about fathers in pregnancy and how by 4 weeks, by scent, you guys know that your partner is pregnant. I had a strange experience of having had a baby, having had a miscarriage, and being pregnant not knowing I was pregnant, okay? I didn't have any symptoms. We went to a wedding, and my husband's uncle, who was the father of 6, comes up and gives me a hug and goes, "Congratulations!" Wally, what's wrong? Nothing, you're pregnant, congratulations. I'm like, I am? And then I miscarried, and the baby was about 4 months, okay? But I didn't have any hormonal things, which would indicate I might lose this baby. But it was just one of those, like, how the heck did he know that, all right? Somebody else in our extended family had a similar situation where she was unable to get pregnant. The man she was with had testicular damage and had no sperm count. They found each other, and they were quite attracted. She had gone off contraceptives. And he said to her one day, "You're pregnant." And she said, "I can't be pregnant. I can't get pregnant. You don't have a sperm count, and I've been absolutely faithful to you." And that was their first child. There were 2 more to follow. All right? Probably that this was a good match. It set off his sperm. And I mean, there was physical damage here. This was medically proven that there was no sperm count. That awareness of how phenomenally and awesomely our bodies are made, okay? So you guys get the scent of this pregnant woman, all right? And your hormones go crazy. We live in a society that says to you, you're nothing but a sperm donor, and it's a lie because you are in this biological dance with your partner, all right? So the first thing that happens is your cortisol goes up. Now, that's a stress hormone, but it's also a bonding and a protector hormone. Nature's saying, pay attention, something important's happening, all right? 60 to 90% of men, if they're with their partner, will experience something called Covad. It means you have symptoms of pregnancy, gentlemen, okay? Primitive cultures knew this. You even had a birthing hut when she was delivering, all right? But you ask a doctor today, they never heard of it. They'll say, well, it's a virus, yes. Because 20% of these guys are really sick. And they'll go see the doctor, and they say something like this: "I'm really sick. I'm throwing up a lot, and I'm nauseous, and I have headaches and backaches and toothaches, and I'm not sleeping well. I'm anxious, but I'm very tired, and I have food cravings. And if it's later in the pregnancy, you've got about 6 pounds that you added, all right?" Doctors say, well, it's a virus. It'll go away. I'll tell you exactly when it goes away, all right? About 6 weeks before the baby comes. But you know what's interesting? These guys who are the sickest, when the baby comes, they already know the different cries of the baby. They immediately can tell hunger from tired from whatever. The other fathers have to learn. These guys know, all right? Now, what happens about 6 weeks before the baby comes is his hormones go crazy. His testosterone drops radically, all right? He gets more estrogen. That's a woman hormone. Yep, but he's got some, all right? And now it goes up. Kinder, more protective, very tender, all right? Cortisol, protection, bonding, all right? He gets a large dose of something called vasopressin. Now, vasopressin is interesting because it's predominantly a male hormone. And you gentlemen, when you engage in intimacy with a woman, get vasopressin, and it changes you. And it gives you preference for that female and makes you jealous of her. Now, you can walk away from that, but you're changed, all right? And that's what we have to understand. Whenever we engage in intimacy as a male and female, the chemistry happens. You can't turn it off. The bonding chemistry happens in both of you. Again, you can walk away from it, but you're changed by it. Okay? Now, he's got vasopressin. This is Mother Nature. Sit, stay, do not abandon right now. All right? Then he gets prolactin, the nursing hormone. He's got it for about 6 weeks. Extra nice, very kind, very tender. Nature is bonding this couple. Nature is moving him to fatherhood. All right? Now, what's interesting is when the hormones start to go back to normal, in the first pregnancy, his testosterone never again goes as high as it was when he was a bachelor. He went from being a hunter-aggressor to being a protector-provider. He has adequate testosterone, but it's dropped. All right? Now, women, the prolactin, when it's there, you can do something like this. Dear, I know it's 11 o'clock, but do you think you could get me diapers in Starbucks? Sure, absolutely. He would be happy to do that. You know when it's starting to fade when you ask the same question, and he says, you know it's 11 o'clock, right? And Starbucks, couldn't you wait till morning? And diapers, how come you couldn't call me on the way home from work? All right? That's your signal, all right? It's returning to normal. But what's interesting is that with every subsequent child that man fathers, he gets more prolactin. Who's keeping count? Amazing what our bodies know, all right? Amazing. So this awareness of how we as men and women are changed by this. Now, I want to come back to men's bodies for a minute here. Seminal fluid, all right? That's the carrier for sperm. Do you guys know that's one of the most complex fluids in the human body? Are you women aware that you absorb it for 15 hours after every act of unprotected intercourse? Why is that a big deal? Because there's 30 kinds of compounds in there, and then there's a ton of hormones. And the hormones are things like there's 13 kinds of prostaglandins. There's follicle-stimulating hormone. There's luteinizing hormone. Oh, wait a minute. Those are women hormones. Yes, you bet they are, and we absorb them. All right? We are changed biochemically by every act of intercourse. All right? There's a lot we don't know, but there's a lot that points in directions here in terms of how complex this whole system is. Long ago, back in the 30s, doctors wrote about the fact that women who had not had sex before they got married had what were called immature uteruses. And I can't find the definition of this, but this was the language that was used. Their observation was that couples who used condoms were left infertile many times. Couples who had regular unprotected intercourse in 6 to 9 months got pregnant. Now, question mark, follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are related to our ovulatory cycles. Long ago, we women did not have 28-day cycles from the time we were 10, 12, 13. We had random cycles. Until when? Until we had our partner and our mate. And then our cycle got regular. All right? And we usually had our partner at about 18 to 20. Okay, we married younger. But think about that. I think, and it isn't just me, I mean the research, points in this direction, that the absorption of the follicle-stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone from our mate regulated our bodies. Fascinating stuff when you think about that, okay? This awareness of the complexity, again, of fluids. Are you aware that that breast milk put on cancer cells in Petri dishes will kill 70 kinds of cancer on contact? Kills it right now. We have discovered this. There are 2 substances in breast milk. We have extracted them. In this country, we are using them to treat prostate cancer very effectively. One of them is called Hamlet. I forget what the second one's called. In other countries, they're being used to treat brain cancer and other types of cancer in the human body. Who would have thought? Without consequence, right? I gave a talk like this at a university in Pennsylvania, and I had an oncologist there. And he said, I have to tell you about my research. And I found it in the medical journals. Now it's written up. He said, if I have a woman who has cancer, the first thing I do is see who her partner is. Is her partner this guy or this guy? All right? If it's this guy, I extract the cells of her sons from her body, inject them into the tumors, and the tumors vanish with no consequence. Think about that. How awesome is that? All these pieces in terms of how we're made that nobody's told us about. That's really incredible stuff, okay? So one of the things that happens is when we women are breastfeeding, we're giving protection to our babies also. And one of the things I've just discovered is that there are all these strange bacteria in breast milk. There's like 700 different kinds. And then they discovered that there are all these strange long-chain sugars, which they thought were to feed the baby. But what they discovered is that they feed the good bacteria and kill off the bad bacteria in the baby's gut. We are establishing the colony of bacteria that we need to be able to process food. All right? So a lot being written out there now about the use of antibiotics and the fact that we've messed with our internal bacterial system, because these are broad spectrum antibiotics that kill off all kinds of things, not just what they're supposed to be killing off. You know, we give them for an ear infection, but they're doing all kinds of other things in our body. All right? Now, I want to say a little bit to you. We're almost done here, and then we'll take some questions. But we need to recognize that when contraceptives were introduced in the 60s, that we all got sold a bill of goods, all right? This was supposed to be wonderful health stuff for women. And the fact of the matter is that there's a whole lot of stuff we don't know about, all right? So, for instance, if I'm on chemical contraceptives, my husband is not going to be in the hormonal dance with me because I am not ovulating. He is not getting the scent information about ovulation, which means that this passion that's there, and for couples, it's when we're ovulating. Nature says there's this little window here that ovum doesn't live very long. It lives about 24 hours, and sperm can live up to 5 days, but there's this really little tiny bit of time that's there, and we're missing it. And so guys find themselves attracted to some other woman, not knowing why, but she's not contracepting. And he's got a biological reaction going on. Now, we don't have to respond to these, but we have to understand our bodies. It doesn't mean you act upon them. But this question is a date rape question, too, because I'm ovulating, and as a woman, I'm dressed to impress, and I'm flirtatious, and I'm arousable, and the guys around me respond to this, and we have a few drinks, and now it's date rape city, and there's a pregnancy, all right? We need to understand that we're changed by those experiences. We need to make good decisions about them. I have spent my life helping people to heal after abortion loss, women and men. I wouldn't wish that on anybody because the pain is profound for women and for men. We've done 2 conferences on men. We don't think about men. Okay, again, you're sperm donors. What does it matter to you? No, your body was in the dance. And depending on what your role was will depend on how immediate your response is. This is significant, all right? Remember, we carry cells from those children. That's why we can't forget. We carry those cells the rest of our lives. They're there and present. So that awareness. They knew in the beginning that the pill caused blood clots in people, all right? There's a woman in England, she's a doctor, Ellen Grant, wrote The Bitter Pill and a couple of other books. She's 80 now. I did a conference at Georgetown in August, and I wanted her to come, and she goes, I'm 80, I don't fly anymore. So I didn't get her. I've not abandoned this. I'm thinking about a way to still get an interview with her. But anyway, she was talking about this. And I'm telling you that today, I am particularly touched by this, because this is the day when one of my daughter's best friends died, about 5 years ago. From what? The pill. She collapsed on a college campus. She was on the pill for health reasons. She was filled with blood clots. They rushed her to the hospital. They got them out of her heart. They got them out of her lungs. She was awake and conscious. And they told her parents that they had to tell her they were going to let her die because they could not get the blood clots out of the rest of her body. She died 5 years ago today. That shouldn't have happened. All right? Women are not tested in most cases for this blood clotting disorder, but women who don't have the blood clotting disorder could still die. I did a conference in August on contraceptives. There was a woman whose daughter had died of the NuvaRing. She was written up in Vanity Fair. Her name is Erica Langhart. This mother knew all kinds of things. She was so awesome, and she was so helpful for this conference. And she committed suicide at Christmas. She couldn't live without her daughter. Shouldn't have happened. Okay? Shouldn't have happened. We need to understand that this is a carcinogen. According to the World Health Organization, it's a type 1 carcinogen. You know, the Little Sisters of the Poor, I think that what they ought to argue is that if they have to pay for the pill, then all other employers should pay for one of the other type 1 carcinogens, which would be tobacco. I don't think that would go very well, but it's true. All right? We need to know that these things change all sorts of things. 50% of women on the pill are depressed. Do doctors ask women if they're on the pill, are you depressed, or you come in with depression? Do they ask you, are you on the pill? No, they don't. They hand you an antidepressant. All right? Nutritional deficiencies. There's a man by the name of Ross Pelton who spoke at our conference who's written a book called The Pill Problem on the nutritional deficiencies that are just there. It kills our libido and it may never come back. How ironic that the thing that's supposed to set us free kills our libido and we may never be interested in sexual activity again as women. How ironic. There's pelvic pain, there's gallbladder, there's the blood clots, there's glaucoma. Crohn's disease, if it's in your family, you're 3 times more likely to develop it if you're on hormonal contraceptives. It shrinks your ovaries. It ages your ovum. So at 30, you may have old ovum, all right? Means you may have problems getting pregnant, all right? There's the ecological issue of it being in the water. What happens if I'm on the pill and I'm pregnant? I'm not supposed to be pregnant, so I don't know that I'm pregnant. What happens in terms of epigenetic change in terms of children? There's research going on. Depo-Provera, which is the shot, increases chances of breast cancer. So do the other ones, but Depo in particular. Also decreases bone density. We put our teenagers on this at a point in which your bones are supposed to be developing more consistency. And every year you lose 7%. They're talking about an epidemic of osteoporosis in young women. In sub-Saharan Africa right now, they've just made a nasty discovery. They discovered that the women who have been given Depo-Provera have 40% more likely chance of contracting HIV than women on other contraceptives or on none. That's scary stuff, all right? We are more likely, if we are on the pill or hormonal contraceptives, to contract STDs because it changes the mucus that would normally protect us in terms of our body, all right? This awareness is one that we have to be conscious of. There are many fertility awareness methods out there, all right? Lots of people working in this field. There's a group called Natural Womanhood. There's a bunch of other ones. Those are as effective as the pill without any of the side effects. And what's interesting is that couples who use natural means of fertility awareness have a 5% chance of divorce as opposed to 50%. If that was seatbelts, man, it'd be mandatory. All right? All right? But that awareness of how do we come to appreciate our bodies and what is it that we know. We need to know if we have a room full of people age 18 to 25 who've been sexually active, half of them are infected with a very serious STD that may not be treatable. We have epidemics on college campuses of throat and mouth cancers and other diseases caused by oral sex. HPV is an equal opportunity infector. We have to understand that you guys don't wake up with an STD one morning. You got it somewhere, all right? And we women need to understand that we're at risk. Most of our STDs are contracted in our first sexual contact. We need to be able to take care of ourselves, to make good choices that make a difference here, all right? These are important things for us to be conscious of. They're important things for us to really think about. We need to know that pornography is not sex. Pornography is addiction. When you look at the science of that, the part of the brain that's stimulated is where drug addiction lies. And the reason that people have to escalate with pornography is that you get this kind of same sort of curve you get with heroin or something else. You have to keep using more and more and more and more. It does not enhance relationships. It destroys relationships. Again, the science is out there. If you women are dating a porn user, you're dating a loser because he is never going to be free to love you. He has at his mouse tip all kinds of women, and they demand nothing of him. Nothing. Pornography is a fantasy that looks like sex, but that is highly addictive. There is an online recovery group. There's a couple of them. There's Candio, and there's also Reclaim. These are online. They can help people to deal with addictions. We need to recognize them for what they are and name them, because they do not enhance our lives. they make them worse. And we need to know that as couples, if cohabitation seems like a good idea, it hurts just as much when you break up as if you were married. The bonding is going on in your intimacy. You're changed by that. When we appreciate how incredibly complexly we're made, it changes a lot of things for us. We're entitled to our dreams. We're entitled to be with the man we want to spend our life with, the woman we want to spend our life with. I gave this talk at a Protestant church one night, and it was supposed to be young adults, but I had some of everybody. And afterwards, 2 college-age guys came up and said something to me. Mrs. Thorn. Yes, gentlemen? We've been thinking. Really? What are you thinking about? You know what you said about the pill and about women picking the wrong partner? Mm-hmm. We've decided that if a woman finds us attractive, our first question to her is going to be, are you on the pill? They are living by that. I have told this story in other colleges, and I was out on the East Coast not long ago. Guy came up and said, Mrs. Thorne, remember that story you said about those 2 guys? I go, yeah. I ask that question all the time. I said, it doesn't make you popular, does it? He went, no, but I'm serious about what I'm looking for. I want a permanent sacramental marriage. And so I share that with you, and you can laugh, but I'm telling you, it's like there's wisdom to it. Now, I also tell the teenagers when I'm doing high school talks, the guys, you know, if sex seems like a good idea, I want you to practice saying something, and it's daddy, daddy, daddy. Because ovulation, you're responding biochemically here, all right? Go home separately for about 24 hours and really think about it, because there's nothing that can so radically change your life in 15 or 20 minutes for both of you, all right? And I tell the girls, and the guys just roll their eyes when I start this. It's like, oh, what's she going to say now? I can't believe it. Women, if the man in your life says, I'm going to die if I can't have sex, here's your answer. Can I say and watch? There's no known case of a man who's ever died in the history of humanity for not having sex. If you manage this, there's going to be a documentary, and I'm going to be on TV. Yeah, the boys roll their eyes, the girls like it. Okay. It's my hope in sharing this with you that there's material here that you hadn't heard before, stuff to make you think about it. And what we're going to do now is you're going to come up, and then we're going to take some questions. I will also be around afterwards if you want to ask private questions, because I know that sometimes these are things you don't want to ask in front of everybody. But hopefully this has given you some things to think about, and I want to give you an email address. If you've got a question that comes up, do not call me in the middle of the night. Simply email me. Okay, Vicki Thorn, 2004, at yahoo.com. All right? Now, 2 things. If you don't hear from me right away, don't panic, because when I travel, I do not travel with a computer because I'm usually like speaking all day. But if you don't hear from me in about a week, send it again, because things sometimes go into the cloud and do not come back, especially important things that you need to know. It happens all the time. So, but if there's something I can answer for you, point you to, whatever, I will be more than happy to do that.